Nice socks, Josh.
Thanks, man. Neither of you have socks on.
He did have socks on.
Took them off.
Wanted to be like Joe. Hey!
We're back.
Howdy.
Josh, you jumped.
I did. I was so excited.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, we're glad to be back. I was looking at myself in the TV monitor, as I often do.
Oh, my.
Narcissus.
We couldn't quickly locate the normal over-the-ear headphones. I wore these, but it looks like I have my ears pierced.
I was wondering if that was a conscious choice or a choice of necessity.
Josh
Kinda
told me there
have.
were some upstairs, and I was like, I'm just going to use my earbuds.
Well, it accentuates your fade.
I guess it does.
It's a fresh fade.
It is a fresh fade.
I need to get.
AM. This AM.
You want to hear something neat?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, hello to Facebook and
What up?
YouTube and whoever's watching. We're glad to be back. We missed you guys so much. But I got my hair cut today, and I've shared before on here, I think, that I typically try to get my hair cut at a place where I can evangelize.
Yeah.
Make Christ known. My wife would cut my hair. Josh would cut my hair. He's
don't
the
know if I
assistant to the
would.
regional pastor, and he would be willing to do that. But I try to get my hair cut where I can share the gospel. And sorry about that. And so I had the opportunity today to share from Scripture. So the individual cutting my hair said, "Hey, I'm actually an ordained minister, thanks to the internet, and I got my ordination so I can do a wedding." And so I got to say, "Oh, well, you could use Ephesians 5." And he was like, "Oh, what's in Ephesians?" And so we got to go through Ephesians 5, and he was reading the Scripture out loud in the barbershop, and I was able to talk about the sacrifice of Christ and how marriage points to that. It was just such a...
I know that particular dude, and I think that that was an open door right there. He would be, was he fascinated by that?
He was still reading the Scripture when I left.
Nice.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so I was really, really encouraged. But I just kind of a neat way in a rural place that we can use the opportunities that already exist, like needing a haircut and having a barbershop
Mm-hmm.
to share the gospel. Alrighty, well, shall we dive in?
Seems like it.
Okay, very good. Are you ready,
I'm ready.
Josh?
I think so.
You got your chops ready?
I can't whistle when I smile.
I know, that's my problem.
And I'm
All right, here we go.
struggling.
I'm still smiling.
You got to whistle and then also be the narrator too.
I know. I'm aware.
Yeah, you can do it. Here we go.
Wah, wah,
There
wah.
you go. Yeah, very good. All right, anyway.
It's high noon, and the two gunfighters step out into the hot, dusty street to square off and see who's faster.
Go ahead, skin it. Skin that smoke wagon and see what happens.
Well, ammo's pretty expensive. How about we just put our guns down and I just slap you?
You mean you'd strike me on one cheek, and then I'd turn And you could strike me on the other?
Mm.
I'm your Huckleberry. Slap away.
What's an appropriate biblical and pastoral attitude towards gun and gun culture in the rural church and in rural America? Today on Rural Pastors Talk.
Well, thank you for joining us for another edition of Rural Pastors Talk, a podcast highlighting the advancement of Christ's kingdom in rural places, just like the town you live in. The church is not the baby pool, the rural church, that is not the baby pool we splash around in before moving on to bigger opportunities. It's not the place we're confined until we can take off those training wheels, and it is not God's penalty box as a punishment for breaking the rules. No, Jesus died for his people, and as long as Christ's people live in rural places, a vibrant, healthy, multiplying presence of his church will be there too. Welcome back to Rural Pastors Talk, Season 2, Episode 1. My name is TJ Freeman. I'm the lead pastor of Wellsboro Bible Church in beautiful, currently very sunny and blue Wellsboro, Pennsylvania. And we're here at our new campus up on the hill, which maybe I'll slip in a little note about here in a moment. And I'm joined by...
Hey, I'm Pastor Joe Wagner from God's Family Fellowship Church in the same beautiful Wellsboro, Pennsylvania, only I'm on the other side of town. But right now I'm with you in your awesome office with gigantic windows.
Well, glad to have you here.
Josh McLaren, pastoral assistant at Wellsboro Bible Church. Hello.
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 So we took some time off, and we recorded 100 episodes. And then we decided, it seems like a good time for a break. It was really...
Nice round number.
It was really arbitrary. We had a 101st episode, but we didn't call it that. Bonus episode, because we didn't want to throw off the groove. But things got really busy around here. We went through a long season. COVID happened. I mean, there were a number of things. And we put our heads together and said, you know what? It's time for a break. But now, man, I am so excited to be back. Are you guys excited?
For 100 more.
100 more. I don't know
I
if
don't
season
know
2 will
about
go
that.
that long. But certainly we got 100 more in the tank, right?
Yeah.
Season
Scripts
3
are already
and
written.
4.
The
Yeah.
break was helpful in getting questions from listeners that
Mm.
we hopefully will answer. So there's extra brain food.
This is true. So I want to thank you for sticking with us through the break and then for joining back with us. Welcome to any new listeners who are out there. Thank you for tuning in and checking us out. And welcome to those of you who've been waiting, patiently every day, wondering, when do I
Sure.
get to see Josh again?
Oh, boy.
So, hey, today we have a pretty fun topic. What's going on this episode, Joe?
Well, on this episode of Rural Pastors Talk, John MacArthur and John Piper have different ideas. Our 4 points on guns and gun culture in the rural church in rural America.
I thought it was 3 points.
Well, how about we do 3 points and we'll bring it to a close and maybe come up with a 4th one on the way.
Or you
Like-
could close with your prayer. Your 4th point is your prayer.
Oh,
Yeah, there
yeah,
you go.
I've done that before.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, I cut you off.
And then my new favorite way to shave,
Oh, all right.
because I only have to do it twice a week.
There you go. Nice. Good. So, Joe,
Yeah. I think you're me and I'm you.
I know. I was going to set you up to be you, though. How do you feel about this topic?
Like, this is probably one of the more controversial topics we've tackled. Guns in the church and how we handle that pastorally. I mean, we could have talked about something easy like CRT or race or politics.
Yeah. CRT. We're using a flat screen monitor, actually.
Oh.
Yeah. So just wanted to clear that up.
Gotcha.
Well, we could have, and we may just tackle some of those things in the future if we get brave. But today we are talking about guns and Christians. And part of the reason for that is there are plenty of gun owners in rural places, maybe more so than in an average urban environment where in some places you really can't even have a gun.
And it's not necessarily like the guns are just like out there either. I mean, we deal with issues about guns in churches.
That's true.
I know that even in elders meetings, we have discussed this and talked about guns as part of like our safety plan. Are we going to have trained, competent people with concealed carry firearms on their person in the church, watching out for the safety? And it's a controversial sort of a topic because there was one elder who was a manly man, a dude, a gun owner, a hunter, and he's like, no, we're just going to rest and trust in God's sovereignty and to keep us safe. And then another dude,
Which
was
is a good, I mean, that's a
It is.
theological option as an
It is.
opinion to be able to say, I'm going to entrust this to the Lord.
And then we had another elder who was on the other side of the coin and said, hey, while we spiritually feed these people, we need to keep them physically safe too. You know,
Mhm.
so like that was a gun issue that was like right in our church.
And that, I think, is another potential good theological argument. That's what
Mhm.
makes this topic hard, is it's one of those where you could come to different conclusions using sound biblical theology.
And sometimes, though, you can come to your own conclusion by twisting Scripture, America to match up with what you want it to match up with. But just
Well, because we live in a theonomy, just kidding.
you see this
That
out
joke
there quite
landed
often.
about as well as my jokes on Sunday morning.
To dunk. As I was doing a little bit of research on this, guys like John MacArthur and John Piper are people that we respect very, very, very much, and they don't have polar opposite views, but they kind of land on a little bit different side. John Piper is more cautious, and I think that you had mentioned that he's evolving on this issue too, but he doesn't necessarily think it's a very wise thing for Christians to have guns in their homes. Even for self-protection. At least one point in his ministry, he said that Christians are a people of peace. Right? Scripture calls us to that, and we are called to courageously suffer like Christ suffered. And there is a powerful witness in our suffering. And he used some of the martyrdom of the apostles in the Bible. He used Jim Elliot as an example, and he talked about the courage to be able to face danger, trusting in the Lord. Like that. And yet Piper was still not dogmatic or in your face to gun owners if somebody had a gun. And even when he was asked a simple question, if you owned a gun and needed to protect your daughter, would you? And he came back and he said, probably.
Yeah.
So if you were going to be a little bit, I don't know, if you wanted to characterize him, some people might characterize that as squishy. But at the same time, for some scriptural and doctrinal reasons, Piper didn't think it was necessarily wise for Christians to have or be gun owners.
So, like in other areas, maybe he's open but cautious.
Open but cautious.
Yeah. John MacArthur, on the other hand, would be in a little different position. He had a situation once where somebody was trying to break into his house, and he didn't have a gun, but he was standing on the other side of the door with a baseball bat, and he was ready to defend his family and was willing to do that right in the moment. So I don't think either of them are dogmatic, unlike somebody notable.
Like a Jerry Falwell who told all the students at Liberty University to go get their concealed carry permits and carry them around.
Yes.
I think that might be a little bit too much of a stretch.
Yeah, well, I don't know that we'll solve the debate today. However, I think we can offer you 3 points and a prayer
Yeah.
on how to go about ministry in a rural church where there are a lot of gun owners. This is something we need to think about. Hey, 3 points. I thought we had 5.
Well, we did have 5, and they were representative of something, but we've wanted to get down from like 50-some minutes down to 30 minutes, so we did contract down to 3 points. But again, dogmatic seems to be the word of the day. We might not be super dogmatic about that.
There you go. We're trying to save time. We'll see if that happens. So I'm going to read a passage of Scripture, and then you're going to comment on it. How do you feel about that? 1 Corinthians 9:19-23. For though I am free from all, I have made myself a servant to all, that I might win more of them. To the Jews I became as a Jew, in order to win Jews. To those under the law I became as one under the law, though myself not being under the law, that I might win those under the law. To those outside the law I became as one outside the law, not being outside the law of God, but under the law of Christ, that I may win those outside the law. To the weak I became weak, that I might win the weak. And I have become all things to all people, that by all means I might save some. I do it all for the sake of the gospel, that I might share with them in its blessings. So, Joe, what point would you come up with in light of that scripture?
Well, let me share if this was a sermon, I wouldn't necessarily do this because I'm going to share personal testimony. I'm going to talk about me for just a second. I grew up in a gun family. We went hunting, we shot, but we didn't shoot or hunt a lot. But for me, probably within the last 2.5 years, I started collecting rifles. I started building rifles. I started collecting guns. I started
Now
buying
you have like
ammunition.
a gun room. I've seen it.
Yeah, we got lots and lots of guns.
Guns have their own bed.
Well, it's nice and
He
cozy.
tucks them in at
It
night.
is,
Tucks them
yes.
in, yeah.
Yep.
Now, I am saying this, and I am saying that I think that my motivations for collecting those was probably an error and probably sinful. Again, this is not as simple as what it might make it out to be, because my motivations for collecting those were, I better buy these now because there's might come a time when I can't get them. And I didn't necessarily wrestle in my brain with what I would do with the ones that I had if all of a sudden it became a law that I couldn't have these. But I was going to say, I was using in my own brain, like, I got to get them now. So if they're grandfathered in, like
Yeah.
if I can't buy new ones, I've got them.
Sure.
So, and for me, I don't do real well with things like this. So when I bought one, and I'm like, oh, I really like this one, but there's another one that I really want. So then I got another one, and before you know it, I had quite a few of them. So my motivations for buying rifles and buying guns, and buying ammunition was not great. But since then, what I can share with you, and this is where I'm going to go back to Scripture a little bit. I'm trying to be all things to all people. I'm trying to use Paul's example here. About a month ago, at my house, and I have a permanent range that's set up. There was 15 to 20 different people at a single time out there at the range where there was a qualified instructor, and they were taking turns shooting the guns, and they were standing in line. And while that qualified instructor who goes to the church, I was standing there, and I was able to do some ministry amongst those. And so having those rifles and having that ammunition and having that range really, really, really seemed to be able to open up doors to be able to get to folks that I wouldn't necessarily otherwise be able to get to. And these weren't just all like small group people. This was like a small group picnic where we intentionally invited unchurched people to come be part of our small group and enjoy that picnic. So we ate and we fellowshiped and they talked, and then a bunch of people went out to the range. And I can't tell you, it's amazing, and some of you might think that this is crazy. There was a mom who was there, and she brought her son. Her husband wasn't able to come. He had just bought a rifle, but he couldn't find any ammunition to shoot. And the son loved to shoot, but he didn't have any ammunition to shoot. So he went through a lot of rounds, and she kept saying, "Thank you so much. I appreciate it so much. This has been so good. We need to do this again." And we all know that is that golden opportunity, that door is open to be able to reach out to them and take, hey, you want to come on over? And it's not just about shooting or starting a shooting club, but the end goal is to be able to share the gospel with those. It's created gospel opportunities. So I'm not telling you guys that you guys need to go out and buy a bunch of guns and buy a bunch of ammunition. If you've got your guns, don't hide them. If you've got ammunition, don't hoard them. Use them up. For good reasons, and that's an opportunity to endure. And if you're not a gun guy, you've got people in your church that probably are, and that is a great opportunity because ask them to teach you about them. Hey, can you teach me how to do this? Can you show me how to do this?
And guys love that.
And
They're
guys
happy to do
love that. Yeah. Jump in, man.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, so that is our first point, that the gun is not just a tool for self-defense or
Hunting
harvesting game.
Or for
It is-
fun.
It's a ministry tool. And you need to look at it that way, I think, if you live in a rural place. So if you just have this, like, fear of guns or a distaste about guns, but you live in a place where gun culture is common and people maybe think you're a little liberal or different from them.
Or
if
citified. There's that there. That's
urbanized.
right.
Yeah. If you're not into the gun scene, then maybe prayerfully just consider how you could soften maybe in your approach and embrace the culture so that you can be more effective where you are. Anything else you want to say about that?
No.
Okay.
I think we got it.
Point number 2, use guns according to the law of the land. I love that you wrote this script and then the parentheses you put mostly TJ and Josh.
I did. I was like, I
Yes.
got this first point. I
Yeah.
got the easy one, the experiential one, and now TJ, you get to talk to us.
Well,
about
I'm just going to touch on this quickly, and I'll just say up front, I don't know really where I stand positionally here with this. I, of course, agree that most of the time you are called to submit to the civil authorities. And I say most because there are times where they would seek to have you sin, like Daniel.
Yeah.
And you would rebel against that and not follow the law in that case. But Paul says in Romans 13, let every person be subject to the governing authorities. There's no authority except from God, and those that exist have been instituted by God. Therefore, whoever resists the authorities resists what God has appointed, and those who resist will incur judgment. And on it goes, all the way down to verse 5. Therefore, one must be in subjection, not only to avoid God's wrath, but also for the sake of conscience. So there is this idea of Christians submitting to civil authorities. And the question that we need to wrestle with, and we're not going to wrestle with it in full today,
Oh, come on.
is if the place I live in doesn't permit gun ownership. I'm thinking of like New York City. You know,
Yeah.
you could have one in your house, but it can never leave your house. So something like that. Or if the government were to say, as you mentioned before, we're confiscating all guns, and you have maybe an unregistered gun of some sort, or you've acquired a gun that you feel like, well, I really have a right, maybe a God-given right, and maybe a scriptural call to protect my family, that would supersede what the government has done as maybe a power grab of some sort in this case. And then you have things like, well, you know, when our founding fathers opposed Great Britain, that brings up a lot of questions, like, were they sinning in their rebellion?
That might be one of the most difficult questions that I have ever gotten from somebody offhand.
Yeah.
And this was about mass mandates.
Okay.
Back in the day, back a year or so ago or
Yeah.
less.
Back in the COVID.
Back in the and it was, hey, you know, government's telling us that we need to wear masks and we want to follow these rules. Oh yeah, well, what about our founding fathers?
Yeah, we're gonna dump our masks in the harbor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I was like, oh
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. So, you know, here's where I think we can leave this for today is you need to be prayerfully thinking about this now, because the potential for restrictions to be placed upon citizens of the United States in terms of gun ownership is likely. And as a pastor, you're going to have to provide some counsel to the members of your church regarding what to do if Uncle Sam knocks on the door and says, give me your AR. You know, what do you do in that moment? What if he gets to the point where it's Uncle Sam says, give me your granddad's hunting rifle?
Right, that one.
You know, those kinds of things. So rather than debating the topic like you set me up to do, my dear brother, not really. I just would urge that you seek some counsel on this now, that you start prayerfully thinking about this.
I've got more to say about this
I
one.
was hoping you did.
Because you tackled the most difficult one right out of the box.
Yeah.
You talked about.
That's what I do.
We're taking it head on. Here's one where it's much, much more easy to deal with. In guns and shooting sports, there are rules. All right, so we do have some ones on the books. And I guess, and I'm going to speak for Joe. There are certain regulations that you've got to follow. All right, I'm going to follow those regulations. They seem fair. They seem okay. I'm good with those, you know, and I don't want to follow them just because they seem fair. They seem good. It's like I'm in here with Romans chapter 13. But here's some other ones, too. As a pastor or as somebody that is, you've got a witness and you're trying to draw people in, there's good rules to follow, right? You don't shoot a deer out of season.
Yeah, that's good.
We follow. There's seasons and bag limits. There's times when you should shoot and there's times when you shouldn't shoot. Yeah. So even in those smaller sorts of, like quote unquote smaller sorts of rules, I think for the sakes of our own conscience, if we're going to be using guns, then let's use them responsibly and goodly. And most of the laws that are on the books right now are responsible and good.
So 2 years ago, I think it was,
Oh, you've got a perfect story. You actually, I'm going to set this up and bless you because you did something that I would not have done because I'm a sinner.
Oh, well, I was walking through the forest. It was the last day of rifle season. It was very foggy, in my defense. That's an important part of the thing. And I'm walking along. My dad is kind of out on the ridge, and I'm walking through the middle of this pine forest area. And in the fog, I see Bambi's dad,
Mm.
laying under the tree, and the deer started to get up. The way that the angle I had, the antlers just looked 10 times bigger than what they were when I got up to it after
Yeah.
shooting it.
Josh,
And-
that's normally called buck fever.
Yes, that's called buck fever. And buck fever intensifies the longer the season goes.
Yeah, it does.
And so I didn't want the deer to run away, so I took the shot. It was foolish. I should have waited and had a better view, but I was pretty convinced. When I got over to it and I saw the size of it, I realized I had shot a deer that falls into the antler restriction
Yeah.
category, so it was not legal to harvest. I had that dilemma in my mind. Oh, what do I do? And, you could leave the deer there. No one would ever know. You could probably take it home. No one would ever know. But in God's kindness, he gave me a very sensitive
Mhm.
conscience.
Yep.
And I thought of this passage, and I thought, well, the thing was amplified by the fact that the game warden is a member of our church. So I had to call
He
him.
called me up one day and he asked me he said, "This is so and so and so, the game warden." I'm like, "Oh no, what did I do?"
Yeah. Did you do something wrong?
No, he was gonna give me a deer.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's awesome. So
Maybe it was
yes,
yours.
I let them know, and they came over and took it, and I had to pay a fine and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying that to brag upon myself. I'm just saying
This is an
there was a
example.
testimony there that I had to consider, not just my standing before the Lord, which I want to do what honors Him, but also this is something that makes a statement about right and wrong. Am I really going to practice what I preach?
Right.
Especially when it would be very easy and no one but me would have known
Right.
if I did something else. And then the game commission blessed me with 2 deer.
Yeah.
So I gave him back the 1. Later, I got 2, which was great. So it worked out. Can we go to the question on everybody's mind?
Yeah.
What about guns in church?
Guns in church.
Guns in church. Should we be bringing our guns and our Bibles to church on Sunday mornings?
I've got so many things that I was just going to say, but that would lead us down a different path.
Okay.
I was to say, but I won't go there. Should we? I'm going to let you lead with this one because I know what we did as a church,
Yeah,
and I bet it's very, very similar to what you did as a church.
maybe. So here's the thing. We live in a place where guns are prevalent.
Right.
Concealed. You can open carry. I got invited to open carry at a wedding. It was a request by the groom.
Really?
He said, "Would you please honor me?" He's involved in the state police. But he said, "Would you please honor me by open carrying
Nice.
for the wedding service?" Which I did.
Now let's just kind of take a little bit of a branch off here and maybe explain the difference between open carry and concealed carry for people that might not know.
Okay, yeah.
and why
that's-
there's a difference.
That's good. So open carry is when you have a gun strapped to your body that's visible.
Which
So-
anyone can do, right? You don't need a special permit as long as the gun's legal
Correct.
and registered.
That's right.
Yep.
And then concealed carry is what law enforcement's concerned about because you could be hiding a gun that they
Mhm.
can't see,
Which
and
you
only
do need to be permitted for.
yes,
There's
only
an-
certain people.
There's
can
an
do that.
inverse of that too.
Yeah.
I have a dear friend who's a law enforcement officer, and he would much rather people conceal carry than
Mm.
open carry because open carry can be a great big poster
Yeah. Right.
that way too. So it's
Understood.
not one ways right now. It's just a complicated
It
issue.
is a complicated thing. So in Pennsylvania, if you want a concealed carry, you have to go to your local courthouse or whatever agency you have in your districts and register, and they do a background check and things like that. If you want to open carry, you just put your gun on your hip and you go out the door. So in the average church in our area, people are packing. They're
Mhm.
wearing sometimes a gun inside the waistband, in the pocket, on in the ankle. I've seen all of those kind of things. I've never seen anybody do the is that Magnum PI under the armpit?
Actually,
thing?
yeah, we've got a guy that
Do ya?
carries that. Yeah.
It seems so uncomfortable.
There's lots of pistols and purses too
pistols and purses. Thank you. I'm glad
that the
you mentioned
ladies
that.
are carrying.
Yeah, and you have then a whole range of skill sets on the ability to know how to handle a firearm properly, to handle it in a safe way. So that's where this debate comes in. But quick story. So not far from us, there was a shooting at a church, and the organist was killed
Yeah.
during a church service. And actually, the gunman, who was her estranged husband or possibly ex-husband, I'm not sure which, came into the service, shot her, left, came back, realized that she wasn't dead, and shot her again. Meanwhile, the entire congregation sits there, or stands there, runs to her aid, whatever, but no one was able to stop the assailant. Many would argue that that is the fault of the leadership of the church, that there was nobody there to be able to protect in this way. And having a gun in your car or something like that is not going to be helpful in a situation like that. You're not going to get there in time. So a lot of people in our area, partly because remembering that story and partly because it's rural Pennsylvania, carry guns. Not everybody knows how to use them. So here's the thing. Like in our previous facility, the church nursery shared a wall with the sanctuary. And if a bad guy would have gotten between that church nursery wall and a shooter, potentially a stray bullet could have gone right through into our nursery. There's things like this that need to be thought about and talked about. So you were going to get to what we formally did, though, as a church. We have a security team. I presume that's where you were headed with this as well. And we tried to get guys who are well-trained, who have received instruction, who practice shooting, who strategically placed themselves throughout the congregation and roamed the building to make sure that we're safe. Now, I was faced with not a dilemma, but a challenge once where in our previous facility, we had some strange things happening. And our security team approached me and said, hey, as the guy behind the pulpit, you have a special view.
You sure do.
That no one else has. And we would appreciate it if for this season you would arm yourself while you're up there. And, I just had to wrestle with those kind of thoughts in my mind. And that's something pastors need to think about. I don't always listen to Duck Dynasty. But because I knew we were doing this topic, I assumed that they probably had addressed it.
I bet you they did.
And Jace,
I know which one
you
you're
know
talking
what I
about.
mean?
Yeah.
He said,
He's my favorite.
is he? He said, I don't really want to carry my pulpit, my Bible and a gun into the pulpit. And he teaches a lot. But he said it's not because I'm opposed to it. I just don't want to be thinking about dual responsibilities in that sense. And then Phil was like, well, that's dumb. He's like, I don't like it either, but you have to.
Yeah.
And he kind of defended that. And, I can kind of see where both sides come from. But ideally in a church, it's a good practice to have a security team who is well-trained, who you can just rest in the sovereignty of God and the capabilities of this team who's in place so you can bring forth the word and they can carry this out. But everybody's got to make their own
Can
choice.
I just share one thing? And we're getting a little bit further off from the gun, but it's more church security.
Yeah.
I would agree with everything that you just said. I would just throw one caveat out there. Lock your doors. That would be,
hide your kids, hide your wife.
Yeah. Well, if you have somebody manning the door and it's a particular time and that door's locked, then that means that the bad guy can't get in.
Yeah, that's huge.
And it buys you some time. So you don't have to rely on... You can be more John MacArthur behind the door with a bat, but the bad guy's on the outside.
John MacArthur's pulpit descends into the stage so that if there's an issue, he could climb in it and down it goes. But you know what John MacArthur does when people confront him? He just stands there and then he makes light of it and
Lets
goes
the
on with
security
his
team handle it.
Yeah, which is interesting.
Yeah.
So anyway, one other thing on security stuff is the best thing is if you have observation and confrontation. So, somebody's being weird in the parking lot. If you have parking lot greeters out there, they're likely to know that. They just need to be trained that I'm going to go talk to that guy. Yeah. I'm not going to just act like everything is fine. I don't want to offend or whatever. And the same thing for you wherever you are. So often in our minds, we think we want to downplay situations and stuff, so we ignore them. We don't engage. If somebody's acting squirrely, look them right in the eye and start talking to them and asking them questions. You're likely to deter somebody through something like that.
Verbal judo is much better than a mag dump.
That's right. Exactly. So think about those things. Anything else, Joe, before we move on?
No, man, I think we're good. Are we going to hit the last point, or are we going to go straight to my straight razor?
Can you summarize the last point in 30 seconds or less?
Hey, listen, guns and shooting sports might be an American right, and we do have it, and it's important, but it can become an idol for Christians. Like we can we can spend so much time obsessing about this, and this kind of brings me back full circle to what I was doing in the beginning. Remember what is most important. Keep your mind on the things that are above, not on the things of the earth.
It's good.
Right? So
Yeah.
there you go.
You did that well. Very good. Uh-oh. Yikes. Oh, no. It's okay. It's been a long time since you've hit that button.
I haven't gamed for a while either, so I'm
Oh.
lethargic.
Yeah,
Can you
well,
believe
I'm
it?
actually really happy
Yeah,
to
I've
hear
been
that.
doing. I've been plumbing instead. Very exciting.
It's like you're almost a grown-up
Now-
man.
If you want to combine gaming and plumbing, you just be
Play
Mario.
Mario.
Yep, there you go.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
I thought that the verbal judo rather than mag dump was the best line, but that one was the best,
Nice.
best line right there.
It's the Luigi.
Did we get the full
I'm playing
SOS?
it again.
There
I'm
you
playing
go.
it again.
All right. Hey, you can help us out. You can get us out of a tough spot. It's not really that we're in a tough spot, but
It's like we're drowned in.
we're still.
Reach out with your hand and I'll grab a hold of you.
Okay. All right. Well, here we are in season 2, and we'd love for people to find Rural Pastors Talk. Not because we want them to see us, not because we think we have the best content out there. It's nothing like that. However, we do recognize that the whole reason we began a podcast is that the rural church is in a bit of trouble. It's dying. It's dwindling. Churches are closing their doors. Guys feel disconnected. Great resources aren't as available. Contextually, things are a little hard to apply sometimes that we hear from the big mega book retailers and conference holders and such. So we're just trying to promote the advancement of Christ's kingdom in rural places. And you can help us do that 3 ways. First,
Subscribe.
yes, subscribe to the podcast. You can offer a review. That really encourages us. But both of those 2 things help the algorithm boost this so people can see that it's available.
And yeah.
Lastly, Josh.
You can share, whether through sharing our little button on Facebook or copying the YouTube URL and posting it somewhere, or just word of mouth, sharing with brothers, people you know.
There we go.
Mhm.
Thank you. So, see, crisis averted. These dear, tender souls have gotten us out of a tough spot.
Yes.
Aren't
Thank you.
thankful?
Thank you.
We have the best listeners of any rural church podcast.
There's actually a couple out
Are
there
there?
So there's
now,
not that many.
Oh,
There are a
well,
few, though.
maybe I should
but
recant.
ours is still the best.
No, that's not true. We're just...
But if there's other rural church podcasts out there, listen to them too.
yeah, listen to them equally or more.
Unless they're unbiblical.
And then you shouldn't listen to them at all.
Yep. Okay, we're stuck right here. How we get out of
Yeah.
this? Do we have music to get us out of here?
I think so.
Well, normally you scream.
Oh,
Time to move
stuff.
on, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Joe, you know what we've got?
What do we got?
Stuff!
Rural
Pastors!
can use.
Review.
Well done, man. Well
Now we
done.
have the music. I kind of thought the music came first as well, but Josh is right.
It's been a long time.
As Mr. Producer, he would remember. So, Joe, your face looks smooth as a baby's
Cheeks.
foot, which is also
Actually,
incredibly
today is
smooth.
not very smooth at all. I really can get away with shaving 2 or 3 times a week because my beard does not grow in fast and it's also very, very light. So shaving for me, I don't know, becomes a hassle. It's not something that I'm necessarily. I mean, I've done it for a long, long time, but it gets boring. You're like, oh, I gotta shave. Ugh.
How
It's like
long
brushing
does
your
it take
teeth.
You?
Well, not for, but it's still. It's like I get bored so easy.
Wow.
There's
Yeah.
times I'm like, I don't want to brush my teeth, but I know I have to brush my teeth, so I got to brush my teeth. So then I can't do my ABCs and brush my teeth and count. And like shaving's the same way. I'm like, So in my old age, I've decided that I'm going to bring some spice into those boring parts of my life. So I got a straight
Not
razor.
Old Spice. New Spice.
Not Old Spice. You are on it
Not
today.
Old Spice, but New Spice.
Like I used to use the Gillette like 3 or the 4 razor that just.
Yeah.
But I did some research on the Amazons, and I got myself a Parker stainless steel razor. And I would really, really, really like one like our barber has because he has a collection of the real
He
deal.
does.
Is
yeah.
this the one with the interchangeable blades?
This is the one with interchangeable blades.
Bam, there it is.
Yeah,
Hey.
right there. That how much is that? 17?
$25.
Ooh, that went up from when I purchased it. When I got it, it was in the
Well,
teens.
COVID.
Yeah. So I got that and
It's
I
actually
tried
on
it
sale right now.
for $25.
Yep. Normally 32.
My goodness.
Anyway, continue.
So it did bring a lot of excitement to my ablutions.
Yeah.
And it did, man. I tell you what, I shaved with it the first time. My hair was so afraid to grow again that I didn't have to shave for like a week. But I do have to tell you, it was not as safe as just shaving with a regular Bic or your.
Yeah.
Because I cut
You have-
myself a couple times.
You have to work to cut yourself with the Mach 3 or 5.
Yeah. I didn't have to work very hard to cut myself with this one.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I can't imagine. It's a little
I
scary.
think, but you don't have to shave. Maybe you shave your neck a little bit. I
Which
think you ought to
is
get
the
yourself a
scary part.
Parker.
Now,
Yeah, the Parker's the same one. They're the ones that make really nice pens too.
I was
Huh?
going to ask you. I have one over there on my desk somewhere, but I let it dry out, which is really unfortunate.
Oh man.
So, Cameron Coburn, who he's been on here before, yeah?
Yep,
Yeah.
we've
Okay.
had him.
So he has a beard, but he uses the straight razor to trim his beard because he said you'll never get the same kind of a line.
No, yeah, straight razor gives you.
Right.
Doesn't he also straight razor his head too?
Ooh, I don't know.
I
That's
think
next
he does.
level.
I actually think he does.
We'll have to ask him.
He must be double jointed.
His father-in-law has joked with me that it takes him more time to care for his hair when he has none. Than
yeah.
and I
That's
think it's
great.
'cause he straight
Yeah,
razors it.
the straight razor thing is pretty cool because it comes with those interchangeable blades. It's just like a single. It's not like the double blades, but it's
Yeah.
a single one you need to put in there and clamp in, and
Yeah.
it's pretty neat.
It's a manly thing of you to do.
Yeah,
That's
So you're
cool, man.
making up for the lack of being able to grow a good beard by shaving what does grow in the manliest
in the
possible
manliest way possible.
way. I still don't think Spurgeon would approve.
See
But
what Spurgeon can do.
That's okay. Well, it's been an excellent, lovely episode. You know what we don't have? A quote.
Oh, give me just 1 second, Josh. You might have to edit this out.
Oh,
No editing. What you
well,
say stays.
nervous already.
Buy me some time.
Patrick Henry,
You were going to go with a non-Christian sort of a quote, or was it going to be a Christian?
give me liberty.
Oh, I've got one. If
I
you're
was
gonna
gonna
do
go
that
with
one,
John
then.
Calvin, just the classic. You know, the human heart is a factory of idols. So
Yeah, okay. Well, that goes with Joe's last
yeah.
point. Yeah, it's good. But is there a gun quote?
I've got one.
Oh, I could encourage all our listeners to go listen to Kirk Kennedy's song "I Have a Gun" that I showed you in Jorge, TJ.
I don't remember that, but if it's anything like the last song you showed me.
I think it's that one, isn't it?
No,
In
the
the car.
The last song you showed me
Oh, the
during staff meeting
Yeah, oh yeah.
when I was horrified about.
Joe, do you know
Joe-
Julian Smith? Do you remember YouTuber?
Can you just sing us one bar, Josh?
No, I don't.
One bar.
Do you actually want me to?
Well, you did it at
That's
a
like-
less appropriate time than this.
What are you talking about? That's far more appropriate. It's with my family. Your
Yeah.
family, but
Mixed company.
Wah.
In mixed company, Josh sang.
I'm sure there's no ladies listening right now.
The song is entitled "I Never Get Naked in Your Shower."
Doesn't that just make the hair on the back of your neck?
Yeah, I just have questions. Do you like wear trunks?
No, anyway, it's fine. Go
Yeah.
YouTube Julian Smith. That
All right, I've got one.
Okay.
do it.
Chew on this one before. See if you've ever heard this one. There are 3 things that all wise men fear: the sea in storm, a night with no moon, and the anger of a gentle man.
Ooh.
Patrick Rothfuss.
Huh.
Chew on that one for a while.
I will.
Because
Try
we're
to-
called to gentleness.
That's right. Good.
Hmm.
Well, thank you for joining us for this episode of Rural Pastors Talk, and we'll see you next time.
Adios.
Goodbye.
Later, and raise your Ebenezer
I was gonna say
too.
thank you, Joe. Come on.
Man,
I almost forgot that.
I
Word,
know.
word.
It has been a minute.
It's been a while.
Well, listeners, thank you for joining us. If you'd like to find out more about Josh and his musical taste, you
And his
can
shower trunks?
call him at 570-309.
Listen.
555.
Ciao.
How did we really get in touch with us?
Well, they can go to realpastorstalk@gmail.com, or they
Okay.
could go to Facebook.
I bet we get emails about that. I bet we get emails about that one.
What
we
one?
didn't say anything about this last episode. I bet.
Oh yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm sure.
Jeremy? Is that who it is?
Brother Jeremy.
I wonder if he's listening right now.
I would be. Jeremy, send us your tough questions.
At Rural Pastors Talk.
At
Josh
gmail.com.
McLaren.
Now, he might ask us, is it okay if I buy a used gun at Goodwill? Or
You were on
Does
fire.
Goodwill sell those?
no. But if they did, would you be able to purchase them? I got to shoot at your range. I wasn't going to say it on the show proper, but it was great when you were like, okay, we're bringing out the AR. Kids, go stand on the other side of the shed. And we're just going to shoot. Did you do that for my benefit? Yeah.
Actually, I did it for Katie's benefit.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't necessarily for yours. The only thing I was worried about is shooting the 22s into those metal targets.
Right.
And if it would have hit an edge and gone up.
They could
in the air.
ricochet sometimes. Yeah.
I figured that was the concern. I liked when we shot the vegetables.
We will have to get out there and shoot again. Dave's got a pretty cool range because I've got those steel you haven't been out. He's got
I've been
little metal
amazed
targets
he's
that
got his
sit on like 2x4s and you shoot those and they fall off. They go
Oh,
jink
yeah.
and then they fall off.
That's cool. That'd be fun. Yeah, it's a game changer when you jump from 22 to the 5.56 and then what was that?
7.62
round?
by 39.
Yeah.
You go to that. That's even.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I didn't get to try the 308.